It's live now. You saw that? So you can begin now, Stace. Everything is up. Why are you laughing?
Yeah. Good night, everyone. Welcome back to another session of our book review of the book Patriarchs and Prophets.
I'm just kidding tonight.
You want to tell our audience why you are laughing? If you care to share.
Loxley, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you once more. I join with Stacy in extending welcome to all once more to our Patriarch and Prophet seminar, where we're reviewing chapter 59, the first king of Israel. As an opening statement, I'd like to share this item from the chapter. It says, many urge. No, I'm not going to give you that one. This one, it says, God desired his people to look to him alone as their lawgiver and their source of strength. Feeling their dependence upon God, they would be constantly drawn near to him. They would become elevated and ennobled, fitted for the high destiny to which he had called them as his chosen people. But when a man was replaced up on the throne, it would tend to turn the minds of the people from God. They would trust more to human strength, less to divine power, and the errors of their king would lead them into sin and separate the nation from God. The first king of Israel. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask Sister Brown to open with us. Please. Sister Brown, thanks.
Let us pray. Kind Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for your guidance, your protection during the day that has passed, for the having been with us. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet once more, to look at how you have led your people, to identify the lessons that we learn for ourselves to apply to our lives. That's that you will send your Holy Spirit, be with us, help us to have clarity of thought, clarity of expression, clarity of understanding. Be with all of those who will listen, who will participate, and help that at the end, God will receive a special blessing, we pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you very much. Stacy, kindly go ahead and cause our study guide to appear on your screen. Stace?
Use the one in the group. Can you, Loxley? I'm seeing on the study guide here the questions, not the introductory part.
Well, we'll work with that for now if that's all you have.
Okay.
Because
would you like me to read the beginning parts for you?
You mean the character qualities and such, right?
Right.
Yeah, go right ahead. Thanks.
Okay. Tonight's chapter's Bible reference is from 1 Samuel 8, verse 2. And our memory verses are Deuteronomy 4-6, 2 Timothy 3-12, 1 Samuel 9-2, and Proverbs 3-6. So, Loxley, would you like to take Deuteronomy 4-6?
Go right ahead. Can you post it for us?
Sure. Are you seeing it?
Yes, Deuteronomy 4, verse 6 says, keep therefore to do them, for this is your wisdom, your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear of these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Deuteronomy 4, verse 6.
Okay, Sister Brown, would you like to read 2 Timothy 3 to 12?
Sure. 2 Timothy 3, verse 12.
Verse 12.
Yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution.
And he had a son whose name was Saul, and a choice young man, and a godly, and there was and a goodly, and there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his soldiers and upward, he was higher than any of the people. 1 Samuel 9, verse 2. The last one. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Proverbs 3, verse 6. And tonight's character quality is simplicity versus ostentation. Simplicity is the quality of being simple and not complex or difficult in mind, spirit, body, and surroundings, as Christ lived on earth. Simplicity is the quality of being simple and not complex or difficult in mind, spirit, body, and surroundings, as Christ lived on earth. And the example given here is from Romans 12, verse 8. Or he that exhorteth, or exhortation, he that giveth, let him do it with simplicity. He that ruleth, with diligence. He that showeth mercy, with cheerfulness. That is from Romans 12, verse 8.
Thank you very much. What I'd like you to do for me now, Stace, is to run to the very bottom of our study guide. There we have a list of different types of governments. I want us to quickly look at the definitions of each and just, examine them and where they are used and in summary, their effectiveness.
Okay.
Right out the bat, we know about theocracy. And you can also bring up our study guys so that we can all see it. Welcome, Sister James.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Right, so good. All right, the study guide gives the definitions?
No.
No. Can you go on your other screen and just look up we know theocracy already. Anyone can give us a quick definition for theocracy?
Governed by God.
Governed by God. All of we know governed by God.
Yeah.
But
In terms of what do you call it now? Status. We still have local rulers, although we governed by God.
right. Okay. Thank you. States.
Okay, Loxley, I'm not sure if you're hearing, but you chipped out for a minute there.
Okay, I'm back. Now I'm
Okay.
saying we have theocracy, we have democracy. What other type of governments we have?
Communism.
Communism. Communism is the same as socialism, right, Sister Brown? Sorry.
Communism, socialism, and communism. I think there are some overlaps, but we also have dictatorship.
That means forget the telecom.
But say that again, Sister Brown?
I'm thinking that there's some overlap between, I don't think communism and socialism are exactly alike, but there is some overlap in their principles.
Yes.
But we also have dictatorship.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Loxley, can you confirm for me that you're seeing the study guide?
No, we're not seeing it at the moment.
Okay.
I'm seeing the first page of the study guide.
Okay, good.
You mean on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, so here we are at the last page. You said you wanted something from the last page.
Yeah, those do the list of the type of governments.
Okay.
Theocracy, monarchy, democracy, dictatorship, socialism or communism,
Right.
anarchy.
Little man. Just put this online for me. Put it online for me.
When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. That is in Proverbs 29, verse 2. I'll share another one from Proverbs 8, verse 15. By me, king reign. By me, kings reign, and princesses decree justice. And Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews, but now is my kingdom not from hence. John 18:36.
Amen. Yeah, more text for us?
One last one. For the Lord is our judge. The Lord is our lawgiver. The Lord is our king. He will save us. Isaiah 33:22. And those texts were basically showing or referring to the kingdom of God here on earth and describing the reaction of the people to that kingdom. Or you're muted again, Loxley.
Oh, sorry. Right, thank you. I'm still not seeing the list on my screen, but I wanted us to deliberately examine there's something I'd like to draw your attention to with the different types of governments.
Okay.
So you have.
Do you have access to the study guide from the group, Loxley?
I do, however, it's the same phone I'm using. So,
oh, okay.
Well, let me just see if I can flip it around. All right, yeah, I've flipped it around. It's just that I'm not going to be able to see anybody else, see what is happening on the other side.
Okay.
But let me look at it. Monarchy. Here, monarchy. What is monarchy?
King or queen, rulership by monarch, I guess.
So what is the difference between a monarchy and a dictatorship?
Dictatorship is an individual, well, a dictatorship is ruled by a group of persons, an individual or group of persons. Not chosen, leadership is not chosen by the people, that is democracy. The leaders
Oh,
are chosen by the
that
people.
is dictatorship.
No, the democracy, the leaders are chosen by the people. Dictatorship, the leader put himself as leader.
Okay. And so the monarchy is different from.
A dictatorship is an
Can I read what I have here?
Sure, go ahead.
A dictatorship is an office that has been gotten through force, and a monarchy or crown is reign that is passed from one generation to another, that is through the family line. A dictatorship
Right.
is termed as a government ruled by one person or commander who is known as the dictator. Monarchy is the rule of the king or queen or an emperor.
Right.
All right. All right. So usually, one is where the people started it off. They chose the king, and the king continued in his
Family line.
the family line. So let's look at now socialism or communism. How is it different from democracy?
Okay. Democratic socialism I'm seeing here originally represented socialism achieved by democratic means and usually resulted in reinforcement, whereas social democracy included both reformist and revolutionary wings. I'm not sure if that's clear enough.
Joe Biden.
All right. All right. But one of the things I wanted us to examine as we look at each of the type of governments that are outlined here, you notice that from theocracy down to monarchy, then to democracy, then there's dictatorship, and then there's socialism. You observe that each of them is a step down from the next. Do you observe that? Let us examine it. We're gonna jump into the chapter now. Let us.
Democracy is a step down from monarchy.
Yeah, you realize that? It's as if after being wearied with a king, the people go to democracy.
Somebody them for themselves.
Right.
From among themselves.
Right, because they would have lost faith in what has become of the monarchy.
The family.
All right. The family. Right. All right. The first question I'd like to ask is not from the study guide, but this question I'd like to ask based on the first paragraph. The installation of a king, was this a progressive direction for the nation? Was it a revelation of a serious condition that exists within the nation? How would we answer that question? The latter. Why did you say the latter?
Because it wasn't God's plan for them.
Right. So
God just allowed it, but it was not his plan.
Right. Now the next question that's gonna come to mind. I want to welcome Brother Morris. I see you on, Brother Morris. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Right now, the next question I'd like to ask is this. Now, why would God allow what he doesn't desire, what he knows is not good for us?
Because he does not want to take away our privilege of choice. He would be forced, he would be taking away the gift that he gave us to make choice, and he would now become a dictator.
Yeah, but I mean, it is for our good. It is God. If God forces you to do something, shouldn't that be good?
But
I mean,
he
God
didn't
doesn't
force
mean us.
Adam. He didn't force Adam and Eve in the garden. Not he could have prevented them from going to the tree. But that's the whole thing. That is what this whole controversy is about, choice, the choices that we are allowed to make, whether we are serving God because we choose to or because we are forced to.
So in essential, but God has demonstrated himself as an all is good for us. He has our best interests at heart. Why wouldn't he force what is good for us on us? What would go wrong if God forced what is good for us?
That's the accusation Satan has of him. That is what Satan was telling the angels in heaven. That is the same thing he's telling the other worlds. So God has to vindicate his character to demonstrate that he is not who Satan is purporting to be.
All right. I'm gonna draw it closer to see if I can strike the answer in a more direct way so we can feel where I'm coming from and where I am at. What would happen, Sister Brown, Sister James, Stacy also, and any other female online? What would happen if the perfect man forces himself on you? He's the desired man of you. He's the man you always wanted. He has everything that a woman needs. And not only that, he has exactly what you particularly desire in a man. What would be wrong, if anything, if that man forces himself on you?
Why would he need to force himself if he is who I desire?
Yeah, why would he? But what would be wrong if he did? What would be uncomfortable about it? Anybody? Just imagine you are even there. Something you want, something you desire, but instead of you having the joy of choosing it, it was forced on you. What would be the difference between choosing it and having it forced on you?
You wouldn't be the perfect man, because the perfect man would know not to force.
Well, so what's wrong? It's good for you. What's wrong with
No, but
forcing
the
something?
perfect man would know not to force, to wait until I'm ready or I want. It wouldn't be the perfect man.
Right, because when for something to be forced on you, even though it's good for you, what does it do to you?
It demoralizes.
Demoralizes.
And it breaks the trust. It breaks that trust.
Breaks the trust, yes. And as good as it is, if there's no trust in it, love dies. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So here God demonstrates that though he knows what is good for you, what God wants from us is what? What God wants from us?
For us
Love,
to choose him.
right? Love and choose him, and that is love and trust. I just wanted to highlight that point because here is God, and you know what? The reason why I've steered us to this point is for us to see that how we were created. We are not created to be forced into anything. Right? Stace would remember from the study that we did on the freedom of conscience. How we are designed is to choose. You appeal to our intellect and we choose, and that is how our intellect, that is how our heart is delighted. That is how we grow. We are not made to be forced, and that is why though having a king was not good for them, God will do what only would not even violate his own design by forcing us to have it. That is very important for us to contemplate as we go forward. God is love, and he wants love, and he will only accept love. Nothing forced. Do you follow me?
Brother Loxley.
Yes.
Yes, I am. I don't know if my background is noisy, but if I may add,
Right.
the decision, well, God's allowance of Saul to be a king was to also teach Israel a lesson,
Right.
to show them what it is like with him not being at the helm of the attention as in terms of the kingship, and for them to, it was supposed to be for them to look and then return to him as king. I think there's a part in the reading that states that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you read that part.
So for them to say it again.
So they would have seen they would have seen their error in rejecting him as their king by the experience that they would have had with an earthly king.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I see what you're saying. Very well. Thank you very much. Anything further? Right.
Yes.
Stace. Go ahead, Morris.
Yeah. How does the image of God, how does this reflect the image of God? The freedom of choice. Hello? How does the freedom of choice relate to the image of God? Put it in that way. How does the freedom of choice relate to the image of God? Hello?
Good night.
Good night.
Brother
Good night.
Loxley, are you there?
Ciao.
And Brother Morris.
Yeah.
I know. For me, because God is a God of love.
Yes.
If it is that we are gonna worship him by force, then that would not be true love. So that's where choice comes in. God wants us to worship him freely. He doesn't want to force anyone to love him. Just as if you have your own child, you don't want no forced love from your child. You want the child to love you for who you are. So God is expecting his children to love him as he is. And so that's where the choice comes in.
That's right. That is right. Thank you very much, Sister James. And just to add, as I was saying, and I didn't realize my mic was muted. God's image is by design fitted with freedom of choice. You follow me? I'm still muted. Right? So that is how we're designed, Morris. You want to further say, Morris?
No, no, because I'm getting it that one of the characteristics of God, right, is having this freedom of choice. He's not a dictator. Okay.
That's right.
And since he's not a dictator, and he doesn't want us to be to live under a dictatorship government, just like Satan. Whether or not we want to serve Satan, Satan says, "Look, you're going to serve me." God is not like that.
Certainly he is not. Right. I'm just switching over so that I can look at the study guide.
Okay. You know, I think it's a very simple, but at the same time complex thing to understand. You know, if you even look at parenting, when you tell your child don't do something, sometimes they will question you, sometimes they will deliberately disregard what you're saying, wanting their own way. And that is the image that we have. That is the character that we have, you know, wanting our own way because of selfishness. But if we have that trust in us, if we truly trust God, if he says, don't do this, I think that is what makes the difference between viewing him as a dictator as opposed to a loving God who wants us best for us. That element of trust. Because some persons will view the commandments and say, well, God is giving so many rules and it is so hard. When others will view the commandments as basically a hedge, something that protects us from the side of the cliff. You know, imagine you have a fence up and you can either see the fence as a barrier to keep you in a particular space, or you can view the fence as a barrier that is going to protect you from falling over the side of the cliff. Do you understand that the imagery? It is the trust that we have, and that trust is only fed with the relationship that we have with him. That is how we understand the difference. I think that is what makes the difference of how we view him, whether as a dictator or as someone who is gently, yet sometimes firmly guiding us in the right path.
Amen. Thank you very much, Stacy. So we're going to jump to the first question. How did the government of Israel work? How did the government of Israel work? Anyone?
Yeah, Pastor.
Stacy, I see did you have the answers for us? No? No, I thought I saw a guide with the answers.
Theocracy.
Theocracy. All right, I heard that. And how does theocracy work? What were the what were the roles involved in theocracy? The reading said there were what? 70 there was the work of Moses, 70 elders, rulers and judges, which was simply to enforce the laws of God as they are given from him. They had no authority to legislate the nation. All right? How would you say that in your own words? Rulers, judges, yet they were to enforce God's laws. They had no authority to legislate the nation. How would you say that in your own words? Anyone? All right.
instructions given through, well, through direct communication with God, or instruction received through direct communication with God.
Who get the direct communication?
Huh?
Who will get the direct communication?
The prophet?
The prophet. And everybody agree? That is in God's, in Israel's original government designed by God, the one he desires for them to have, who got the direct instructions? Was it the judges, the rulers, the elders, or Moses?
Can I read what I have? What's
Go
on the
ahead.
study guide?
Sure.
The government of Israel was administered in the name and by the authority of God. The work of Moses, of the 70 elders, of the rulers and judges, was simply to enforce the laws that God had given them. They had no authority to legislate for the nation. This was and continued to be the condition of Israel's existence as a nation. From age to age, men inspired by God were sent to instruct the people and to direct in the enforcement of the laws. So to answer your question, the instructions would have been given to Moses, to the elders, to the rulers, to the judges.
Read that again, Stacy, and tell me for that you get.
You're saying
Read
who, you're saying
who would I get it directly?
who got the instructions directly,
Yes,
as in from God?
from God.
It was passed down to Moses. The
Are you
laws,
sure?
well, according to reading,
According to the reading, if you have another answer, you can go ahead and share, but that is
Yeah.
what I'm getting.
Because
It
if you
was
look
a
at
hierarchy. The people didn't get it directly. It was a hierarchy. It was passed down to the people.
so how come we see it differently? How comes I'm seeing it differently? What
Well,
I'm
share
seeing
what
is
you're
that
seeing. Yeah.
it says
Yeah.
to instruct the people.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't the picture that I'm seeing, isn't it saying that the people were the one receiving the instructions directly from God?
No, it doesn't. No,
No.
it says the work of Moses, of the 70 elders, of the rulers and the judges was simply to enforce the laws that God had given.
Yeah.
They had no authority, so God had given God gave them the laws.
But they had no authority
Right.
to legislate for the nation. So it wasn't they who made the laws.
Okay, here it is. From age
It
to
was
age,
handed
men,
down.
right, from age to age, men inspired by God were sent to instruct the people and to direct in the enforcement of the laws. God gave them the inspiration and they were sent by God to the people. The people didn't get it directly. There was always somebody there as an intercessor, as a go-between. Somebody who was faithful, somebody who was walking, so to speak, with God. Closer to God, because the entire nation was not, clearly.
How are laws made? How are man's laws made? How are laws made?
Are they made?
Yeah. How are they made?
They're made by men.
A representation, basically.
A representation
But
of men for men.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Most of the laws of the land are made by men. Okay. But in the case of God, God made the laws from the very beginning, and then then through his servants, it was passed down to us.
Right. And
So
funny
it was
enough,
God who made it. It was God who made the laws, and then passed it on. But
and he,
in the case of man's kingdom, right? Men make the laws, and the men make the laws usually after the instant. If something happens, then they make these laws. But
Okay.
God did not. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. We're gonna go on to question 2, and we're gonna find which one of the position holds out to the end. All right. I'm taking it that in God's government, each Israelite receive instruction from God. But you, many of us are seeing it otherwise. But let's just see which one sustains itself. Number 2 question. How
Kirk, yes, at Sinai, God gave them individually, yes. As in, God did give them at the Mount of Sinai, the instructions.
directly?
No, it was
It
given
was-
through Moses, because even when God was talking to them, they were afraid. They begged Moses, Moses, you speak to us, because they were afraid of the thunder. They were afraid.
All right. All right.
So it is directly in that it is on an individual basis that we are given the laws, and we are to hold to that responsibility. However, it was always through an intercessor, always.
The use of the word intercessor there is taking us to another discussion. But let us look at verse 2, because it does develop the idea throughout the chapter.
Okay.
Question 2. How would the government under a king work? How would the government under a king work? Let us describe that.
The Lord foresaw that Israel would desire a king, but he did not consent to a change in the principles upon which the state was founded. The king was to be the vice-sergeant, I hope I pronounce it correctly, of the Most High. God was to be recognized as the head of the nation, and his law was to be enforced as the supreme law of the land.
So, in your own words, how would the government under a king work, different from that of what was originally to obtain? Since it was not God's desire for them to have a king, now that they desired a king and God grant them the desire, how was that king supposed to work different from what God originally designed?
He was supposed to be under God. He was supposed to take directions from God and then pass them on to the people.
So how would that be different from what we just said a while ago?
There is a difference, because what happened is that they wanted their directions not from God himself, but from a king who would give the directions. So the laws would be made by the king instead of by God.
Right. Also, you know, a very, very important difference.
Tell us.
The Moses and the prophets before would have represented God. In other words, they were the face of God here on earth, right? When I say face, I mean, you know, when you have somebody representing a particular company, they're the face of the company, but the company has other leaders. Similar meaning. However, a king now, they wanted a king to represent them, to be their face. That's the difference. It was not to represent God, but to represent them, to be their face, the leader for them, not the leader on behalf of God. And that understanding that I got is when they said they wanted a king like the other nations. Like the other nations.
You know what the word vice regent means?
Like a vice president. Something of the sort.
From Google, it says a person exercising delegated power on behalf of a sovereign or ruler.
Mm-hmm.
So
Viceroy.
how is that different from
Vice regent, vice regent.
so is that getting instructions directly from God or indirectly?
Indirectly.
Indirectly. So how is it different from what we described earlier? Because earlier we said we got instructions indirectly. So how is God's ID different from what they were
The
desiring?
leader. In the first one, in the theocracy, the leader got the instruction directly from God. In the monarchy, the leader, he kind of developed the instructions himself. He wasn't following direct instructions from God.
He's supposed to, but because he feels that he is the king, right? He he would make his own rules,
Right.
and that's what God was trying to save them from. Where if you get a king, the king will eventually think that he's God, and will make his own rules.
Well, that's what the king for the other in the neighboring countries. That's what those kings were doing, and that's what they were jealous of.
Right.
What were they jealous of, Mr. Brown?
The people having their king, and he appeared to be appeasing to their what they wanted. So he made a rule as it suited him and as it suited them.
You know, it comes to mind, right? When you look at the politics of the United States, right? And Trump. Trump is a reflection of the minds of the people. That is why they so a lot of people love him, because he's reflecting their own thoughts.
Okay, all right.
I
All right,
agree
thank
with
you
you.
very much. I'm really not convinced of the difference between the two as it has been described. I still see them both as being indirect, but I'm
But
still
remember with the monarchy, the people, those kings, they were doing things to appease to the people. They lost the general the fundamentals that God had put in, and they were into this pomp and all this big celebration, and they made all the local laws and the local rules that the people were enjoying. They felt that under God's rule, it was too strict. I mean, for want of a better term. And they liked what they were seeing with the monarch, on a monarchy, the kings made the rules. They don't necessarily consulted God.
okay. But according to what we just read, God directed the monarchy still yet. So even though they desired it and it wasn't God's will for them, he still directed it. Bar, let's jump on to we're gonna be led to see the thing a little bit clearer as we proceed. So let us jump on to question 3. Why did Israel lose their reverence for God, and what did they demand? Go ahead, Stacey.
When the Israelites, okay, when the Israelites first settled in Canaan, they acknowledged the principles of the theocracy, and the nation prospered under the rule of Joshua. But increase of the population and intercourse with other nations brought a change. The people adopted many of the customs of their heathen neighbors and thus sacrificed to a great degree their own peculiar holy character. Gradually, they lost their reverence for God and ceased to prize the honor of being his chosen people. Attracted by the pomp and display of heathen monarchs, they tired of their own simplicity. Jealousy and envy sprang up between the tribes. Internal dissensions made them weak. They were continually exposed to invasion of their heathen foes. And the people were coming to believe that in order to maintain their standing among the nations, the tribes must be united under a strong central government. As they departed from obedience to God's law, they desired to be freed from the rule of their divine sovereign. And thus, the demand of a monarchy became widespread throughout Israel. I
Right.
think this one puts it even clearer, Loxley. They no longer wanted God's rule. They wanted a monarchy.
And what was God's rule according to
Here,
what we read? Was God's
God
rule
was,
complex or simple?
it was simple, but I'm saying God would have sent down his law through Moses or through the leaders to then speak to them. But they
Was
did
that
not
simple?
want, they didn't want God's rule anymore. They wanted a king to speak to them. They wanted a king to rule them. Here
So
it
what
says, as they departed from obedience to God's law, as they desired to be freed from the rule of their divine sovereign, and thus the demand for a monarchy became widespread throughout Israel.
So what was the reason for them wanting a monarchy from this? Because I'm seeing something here.
They wanted
Why
to
did
be
they
freed from God's rule. They didn't
No,
want
but-
God's rule.
Yeah, but also what was happening? Because the word centralization comes up,
Mhm.
right? What was
Yeah,
the
that's the same,
cause of them wanting to be
Central
centralized, the
government.
government to be centralized?
All right, watch it now. Missy, wanna answer the question now.
Yeah.
What is central government? What problem were they having to desire central government? What would central government solve? That what problems were they having among themselves that call for central government?
And it's in the paragraph.
Sister Brown, you want to wait it on that one?
No, I'm just waiting to get the answer.
You waiting on the answer. Anybody else? Let's see from Sir James.
Excuse me, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I haven't been attentive tonight, but can you?
Right, so I'm checking. Based on our reality today, what is the impact of central government? What problems are usually calls for central government to solve it?
I think central government deal with all the social issues that we face as a people. And they're also the ones that put in place the different laws to govern their countries.
So what was happening to
Right.
Israel? What was happening to Israel for this to happen?
What I observe in the reading is the fact that it's Israel wanted to be like the other nations around. They were looking at the other nations and they wanted to be like those other nations. And
Yeah,
that is why now they want to move away from the government of God.
Yeah,
But
but there's something in that paragraph that gives us the
So just
answer
tell us,
why they were
Hit it, Morris. Tell us, Morris. Tell us, guys. Tell us. Go ahead.
Just go back down. Go back to question 3. Gradually, the reverence for God. right? Simply
Right.
jealousy. All right. Jealousy and envy sprang up between the tribes. Internal dissension made them weak. They were continually exposed to the invasion of their heathen foes, and the people were coming to believe that in order to maintain their standing amongst nations, the tribes must be united under a strong central government.
20, yeah, but
So they were the cause.
right now, same paragraph right now.
You see that? They were the cause.
Yeah.
Because jealousy and envy started to come in.
Oh, so central government is supposed to be the dividing what
human solution.
Central government would be the conscience, would be the
They wanted a one answer thing. They didn't, because here it seems each tribe would have had a leader. Right? And each tribe they were having conflicts between the tribes. So they wanted a one leader to say
bring
yes
them together.
or no,
what
to
is
bring
right
them
and what is
together.
wrong.
Right. They wanted one leader. However, this right here was foolish because they already had one leader.
Amen.
Precisely. So
they already had one leader.
So the problem was with them.
Right. The problem was with them. It wasn't with the type of governance. It was with them, because what was happening, Moses would have been, there would have been a judge, there would have been Moses, then there would have been elders, there would have been judges, prophets coming down the line, right? But they didn't want that. They wanted a one-man king, a one answer.
So what is this a mature? Does this demonstrate maturity or immaturity?
Immaturity.
Clearly immaturity.
All right, very well. Let's jump on to verse 4, because I'm still looking to see if we can sustain our position that God's original plan is direct instruction versus indirect instruction.
Before you go on though, my brother, I'm not sure if you passed it already or if you are still there. I'm not sure, but one of the things that I observe is that as Israel move away from the principle of the theocracy, if I pronounce it correctly, theocracy of Christ, as they move away from that principle, they started to adopt the custom of the Eden nations around, and I think that is the reason why they actually wanted a king. It's because of the custom that they were actually adopting from these Eden nations. And it says that they sacrificed to a great degree their own peculiar holy character. So they lost reverence for God and ceased to prize the honor of being his chosen people. So basically they have rejected God, brethren. That's what really happened. They rejected God.
Very well.
And also they did not appreciate the fact that they were peculiar. They wanted to be like the others, wanted to be accepted by the surrounding nations. They did not accept that they were different.
But brother Laxi, I know you're the author tonight. I just want to ask a question though. How does that reflect us as God's chosen people in the world today? How does that reflect us?
How do we apply that to today? What would cause us to seek otherwise from what God ideal is for us?
If our sinful desires are not controlled, we will desire things that will destroy us.
Okay. And how is it that we start to desire things that are not good for us?
Because of the flesh.
What is the law of our makeup that causes us to desire things that are not good for us?
Sister James just said it, whispering it.
Say it, Sister Jane.
He said, James, you just whispered it. She said because she was whispering because of the flesh.
Okay, the flesh. All right.
Or the law says, by beholding, we become changed.
Yes. But you know, one thing I got from what we read, they no longer appreciated the simplicity of their uniqueness, you know, their very character of what made them who they are. They didn't appreciate it anymore because know that they were observing other nations. Other nations seem to be more glamorous. Their way of life, it seemed to be more glamorous to them. So no,
Stacey,
yes.
was this true? Was this true? Was it true?
No, but that was they were
So,
thinking. They were
What?
now thinking that their lives were
yeah, man.
too
Let's
simple.
talk on it.
So
This is
they
the
no longer
Bible story.
appreciated. Well, yes, their life was simple. It
So
So
was
was the
we have to
simple.
call it
Eden nations more glamorous?
It depends on what you call glamorous, but what we classify as glamorous today, yes, they were more glamorous. They had their parties and they dressed and looked more glamorous.
So what was wrong with what they see and what is true?
Can
What
I
was
say
wrong?
something?
Go ahead.
They are no different from those who were asking to go back into Egypt. You see, over and over, you see the people asking to go back to Egypt. It's not only because we say by them stupid. There's a system of governance that somehow let them feel strange. They were still in Egypt, but yet they were more confident with the governance of Egypt. And that same mentality was now in the people, feeling a sense of a governance from a system that let them. What is your put this now? What was the complaint all the time from the people? Would you allow us to die in the wilderness? It would have been better for us to be in Egypt to what?
Eat meat.
To eat and to be another to be prosperous.
Yes.
So there was no covetousness where they look on these other nations and they seem as if these other nations were prospering because of what? Is when the Bible said the sons of God saw the daughters of men, it's the same principle.
Yes.
So the children of Israel were not looking on the other nations, covetous, because they are seeing things that make them seem like these people are prospering, not knowing what God has been doing for them.
And the question is, were they prospering?
No, they weren't.
So what do we
prospering?
call that in our life?
Who
If
was
somebody make
prospering?
something, no,
Who
that
you mean?
was
Who?
the Eden more prospering over the were they more prosperous than the Israelites?
All right. Remember within that storyline, right, or that paragraph, where they they were disunified, becoming disunified, right? While when they looked on the other nations, they saw the other nations as better than them, right? They weren't having the problems that they were having, that seemed that they were having, but their problems came because of their disobedience to God. That's where their problem lied.
Yes, and not only that, if you study
that's
this
true.
whole thing about gods, it always puzzles me why we have all these different images, and why I don't understand how the Israelites can have a god like Jehovah and yet turn from Jehovah to these gods that are made. I know what I realize when you study idolatry in those ancient times, there was immediate gratification given by these gods or promised by the gods, someone. So in
And
other words, so the patience, the God of Israel sometimes exercise patience in everything and these type of
so
things.
what
But
does
these nations now, it appeals to your immediate I want to say
gratification?
immediate gratification.
What's wrong
So
with
yeah,
that?
the God of what now? The God of this,
What's
the
wrong
God
with
of that, and you do something in order to get it.
so what's wrong with
So
immediate gratification?
all right. So immediate gratification will lead us
Away from God.
into away from God because Eve was
Why would it lead
looking
you
to
from
be
away from God?
Eve. If you study how Eve got tempted, Eve saw the tree, it was good for food, decided to make one wise,
So was it
and so
right?
forth. So she was
What
now becoming deceived in her mind.
long time, Ryan, long time. Finally,
Right? Right?
finally. That's it.
So, 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 so,
Deception.
so deceived. You're now deceived in thinking that your need, what you think is needed, is greater than what God command you to do.
So the fact of the matter is the glamour and whatever they saw in the idolatrous nations, it was not there. It was all a trick.
That's deception.
When we and that's why the law of our makeup is mentioned. By beholding, we become changed. We are finite beings. If you look at a lie, you will be changed by it. And that is what happened to God's people. God's people started looking over the fence. When you cease beholding your heavenly Father, you start become what you're beholding. They were to get the idolatrous people out of the land, not keep them there for them to be a sore in their eyes. That is why they were ordered to get rid of them. Because as human being, if you are hanging around us, if you're around me, I'm gonna look at you, and by looking at you, I will become changed by you. Or you'll become changed by me. And that is where evangelism comes in. That is why if you're not preaching and winning soul, exerting a saving influence on people, the opposite is happening. They're exerting a
demoralizing.
You're losing your salvation if you're not winning souls. I want you to realize that tonight. So tonight, if you are not energized and so equipped and presently spreading the good news of salvation, the opposite is happening to you.
Yes, preacher.
Amen. So it's very important for us to realize that what is happening to Israel will happen to us if we are not careful to be deliberate. You have to be exerting else the opposite is happening. So if you have friends and you're not telling them about the way of life, that means you're following them in the way of death. Stacy, move on to the question 5. Question 5 says, what kind of leader? So we'll move on to Samuel's leadership. What kind of leader was Samuel?
Samuel represented God. So he was a priest. God's government was a theocracy. So
yeah, what else was he? He was a priest.
Samuel was a priest of God.
He was
And
also
what
the
he
prophet
said here he was a priest, he was a judge. But what
and
he
a
said
prophet.
that since the days of Joshua, the government had never been conducted with so great wisdom and success as under Samuel's administration.
That's right. That's right.
So
Now describe Samuel's sons. Now this is meat or matter. This is the meat of the matter. Talk to me now. Describe Samuel's sons.
the young men were
Were
stationed at
they following in their fathers? Were they as good as a leader as their fathers?
No,
And why
They were
not?
not. They were not. They were not.
Why not?
because they didn't follow his teachings. They
Or did he
wanted to
teach them?
control. They wanted to control him in a way.
But did they teach him? Did Samuel teach them?
Yes, they did.
And according to the reading, if he didn't learn anything from Eli. He made the same mistake Eli made.
But not
He
as
didn't want-
serious.
Huh?
Not as serious.
It was not as
Because-
serious.
No.
There's one difference though. There is one difference. He didn't learn from Eli, but there is one step that he didn't make that Eli continued to make. What was it? It says here, the warning given to Eli had not exerted the influence upon the mind of Samuel that it should have done. He had been, to some extent, too indulgent with his sons, and the result was apparent in their character and life. The question I'm asking, why does it always seem to go back to the parents, what the children become? And what should this tell us about parenting? Talk to me.
You know,
Anybody thought?
I am reading what is there,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw the mistake that Samuel made.
Right.
And sometimes as parents, sometimes we don't even realize. Sometimes we feel like we visit our training for our children to see where we went wrong as parents. You know, and
Can we correct it though, Sister James? After the horse gone through the gate, what can we do about it?
well, that is why they say we have to bend the tree while it is still young.
Precisely.
You know.
But what is being highlighted here? What can we learn about parenting and the character of the children? What principle can we identify?
Well, basically, it is showing that the children actually portray the parents' character.
Right? And what principle is that?
Whatever principle the parents demonstrate within the home, if it's got the principles, I mean, sometimes our children, they are disobedient and they do go astray.
Right.
But if once the training is there now, you find that even if we look at, what was his name, the king of Israel, Manasseh. Look at Manasseh, and we saw
Right.
that he actually repented and actually came back to God. So
Right.
sometimes children can be instructed in the correct way, but they come a point where they become disobedient and go their own way. And we have the prime example in Adam.
And so what the prime example in Adam, but what is being pointed out here is this. Parenting follows the principle of sowing and reaping. So as parents, we do the sowing. And when the children become independent of our household, their characters are reaped. So that principle is abiding even after they have left home. But what we do today, and harvest will become of it tomorrow. So that is the principle that we must get. In other words, nothing is too little when it comes on to character building. So be careful that the little things are not considered non-essential, but ensure that the little things are paid attention to, because they are what will make up our character. And that is why it always goes back. The reading always take us back to what the parents were doing that shows fruit in the character of the children. Amen.
You know, there's that
true.
paragraph where it says the injustice of these judges. Could somebody read that? The paragraph where it says the injustice of these judges.
Stacy,
Stacy.
can you bring that up for us? Where are the paragraphs for the answers?
I think it's on page 604. I think the injustice of these judges.
Stacy, bring that up for us. You're not seeing it?
Repeat that page for me, please.
I think it's 604 somewhere. Well, I'm reading directly from the book. The paragraph. The injustice.
Second paragraph.
605, the second paragraph.
All right, or the paragraph before that. I know it's too long. Paragraphs.
Okay, what does the paragraph start with, please?
In fact, it's really two paragraphs. It says it was with the full assent of the nation that Samuel had appointed his sons to office. You found it?
Yes. Sure.
All right, read from there.
Make it smaller. It was the full. Is it on the screen?
No.
No.
Okay. Is it there now?
Yes.
Okay. It
Read
was
from there.
It was with the full assent of the nation that Samuel had appointed his sons to office, but they did not prove themselves worthy of their father's choice. The Lord had, through Moses, given special directions to his people that the rulers of Israel should judge righteously, deal justly with the widow and the fatherless, and receive no bribes. But the sons of Samuel turned aside after lucre and took bribes and perverted judgment. 1 Samuel 8, verse 3.
Go on.
The sons of the prophet had not heeded to the precepts which he had sought to impress upon their minds. They had not copied the pure, unselfish life of their father. The warning given to Eli had not exerted the influence upon the mind of Samuel. That it should have done. He had been to some extent too indulgent with his sons, and the result was apparent in their character and life.
Continue.
The injustice of these judges caused much dissatisfaction, and a pretext was thus furnished for urging the change that had long been secretly desired. All the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all nations. 1 Samuel 8:45.
Continue.
Cases of abuse among the people had not been referred to Samuel. Had the evil course of his sons been known to him, he would have removed them without delay. But this was not what the petitioners desired. Samuel saw that their real motive was discontent and pride, and that their demand was the result of a deliberate and determined purpose.
Okay.
No complaint had been made against Samuel. All acknowledged the integrity and wisdom of his administration. But the aged prophet looked upon the request as a censure upon himself and a direct effort to set him aside. He did not, however, reveal his feelings. He uttered no reproach, but carried the matter to the Lord in prayer and sought counsel from him alone.
Okay, you can stop there. So I think that clears up the matter with Samuel's sons. If he'd had known that they were doing that, he would have taken them immediately from the office.
Right, which is what Eli didn't do. And that's
yes.
Yeah. They speak to that, to the fact that even though he was an indulgent father, he was serious about his corrective ways, now that his sons were practicing sin and misrepresenting the government of God. All right, I'm realizing that it's 10 o'clock. We're just going to use 5 minutes to wrap up.
Yeah.
Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
All right. Now, I want to wrap up on this note and ask this question. I want your feedback. How far is there a point of no return when it comes on to us and our eternity?
Repeat that. Is there a time? Is there a what?
Is there a point of no return? Let me ask the first question first. Does God go with us as far as we can go, even when it's not good for us? And is there then a point of no return, a point where where there's no further he can go? How would you answer that question? Is there, do we find God going with us as far as he can go? And is there a point when we cannot go further?
Yes. It speaks to the close of individual human's probation. So there comes a point where God will do everything to save us. And if it is that we are not willing to surrender our wayward ways and surrender our life to him, then there comes a point when probation will close for this individual.
That's right. So is it that God was God was the one that got tired, or is it that we we run out of energy?
In this case though, in the reading that we are looking at, it wasn't God that had rejected Israel as his people. They were the one that rejected God as their leader.
Right.
They were the one that and I think as human beings, oftentimes we focus on the human side of things. So we don't see that God is the one that is leading his church today. We focus on the leaders that are in place, the earthly leaders. And that was the problem that Israel had. They could not see beyond Samuel's sons who were going contrary to the priest's office. And also, their focus was on earthly and not on the heavenly.
Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else wanted to pitch in a piece? All right, let me conclude on that point by just emphasizing that observe how God treats us. He didn't want them to have a king because it wasn't good for them. But he allowed them to have a king. He chose the king for them. He put his spirit on the king. And yet still the king that he chose, the king that his spirit went on, failed him, let down the people, and it was a disaster for the nation. But God still never left his people, right? But there comes a point when, though God can go on, Israel could not go on. And that is important for us to note, because when Jesus came to the earth and they rejected Jesus, the probation for the people, the nation as a, the nation of the Jewish people as a nation came to a close. And that is going to be true for us today. So I am re-emphasizing our appeal
No,
to
can you
each
repeat
of
the
us.
last part of the statement?
So I'm saying there comes a point.
No, not that part. You said when Jesus came, that section. Repeat that part.
Yeah, when Jesus came, they crucified him. After his crucifixion and at Stephen's stoning,
Okay.
the nation's probation was closed. That means God no longer looked to, or God could no longer use Israel to bring the light to the world. Is that a little clearer?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. So by virtue of that, the Gentiles came in, and they become, as it were, the true son of Abraham, because they were true to the faith of Abraham. And I'm using that platform to apply to us today. Today, if you hear his voice, harden not your heart. That appeal is not only for those who are not in the church, but those who are in the church, because you can be in the church and be lost. There comes God's grace is infinite, but we are finite. God will go, you will choose things that are not good for you, and God will still be there. But there's a point when you will make choices that even though God will go with you, you are unable to go with him. Because as a finite being, your probation closed, your very heart hardens. It's just like in your physical body. Your physical body can take so much and no more. And then after a little while, it expires. You die. And that is true about our hearts. So let us look at Israel's experience in choosing a king, not as, oh, this is a glorious opportunity, but it's a backward step, and God went with them so that, and to see if he can bring them forward. But it came to a point where they, far back, God went with them, Jesus went with them, they would not come forward. They will not be able to come forward. Don't wait until that happens to you and me. Today, take every little aspect of your life seriously, because this will count for eternity. What you plant today, what you sow today, you will reap tomorrow. And that is the appeal I want to make based on this chapter, entitled the First King of Israel. From this chapter, I've learned the lesson that keeps just repeating itself. What you sow is what you will reap. And there comes a point when, even though God waters you with his grace, there's a point when your heart will not receive the watering, and no harvest for eternity will be grown. So today, turn to him with your all, as if it is your last day, because it will be worth it after all. Amen. Over to you, Stacy or Ryan. Right, Stacy? Stacy's not there. All right. With that in mind, we'll pray. At this time, I'm gonna ask Brother Morris.
Okay.
Go ahead and
Let's bow our heads. Once again, dear Father, we are grateful for this platform. And as we have reviewed thy holy words, help it to be embedded in our hearts. No, we have sinful desires, but please, dear Father, take those sinful desires from us and help us, Lord, to desire the goodness that comes from you. Sometimes you don't understand what you're doing, but thanks heavens that you're a God of love and you want that image to be portrayed in us. So as we depart now, one from another, please be with us in Jesus' holy and matchless name. Amen.
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 Thank you very
Yes.
much. Did my conclusion come across clearly?
Yes, it did.
And was it sound doctrine?
Yeah.
Yes, preacher.
Amen. 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 Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful evening. And our next chapter is entitled. What's the title
Yes.
of our next
The
chapter?
next. The what? The presumption of Saul. That's the chapter for tomorrow's night, chapter 60.
Right. So see you guys tomorrow night.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.